personcine del crimine, benvenuti in questo mio nuovo format che si chiama Intervista al Killer e indovinate un po', intervistiamo i peggiori criminali in circolazione. E noi intervisteremo ovviamente questi assassini, come sempre le domande le scegliamo insieme in live, quindi mi raccomando partecipate alle live su Twitch. E oggi vi racconto la storia di un killer veramente incredibile, lui si chiama Nico Claux, è francese e vi consiglio di recuperare il video che ho fatto precedentemente sulla sua storia, che vi linko qua sotto, quindi prima di vedere l'intervista, se vedete il video è meglio, ve lo consiglio. Comunque vi faccio un breve recap, giusto perché così possiate avere una piccola intro. Nico Claux, conosciuto anche come il Vampiro di Parigi, nasce nel 1972 e fin da bambino prova un'incredibile attrazione verso la morte. Va in fissa con la morte, in particolare quando a 10 anni ha visto suo nonno morirgli davanti agli occhi, tra l'altro in seguito a una lite tra loro due, per cui svilupperà anche molti sensi di colpa per questo evento. E fin dai suoi 16 anni sviluppa questa passione di intrufolarsi nei cimiteri e nei mausolei fino ad arrivare a scoperchiare le tombe e mutilare i cadaveri per portarsi a casa pezzi di corpi. Beh, aveva anche l'hobby infatti della mutilazione, del collezionismo e vedremo che questa sua passione lo porterà a cercare un lavoro che lo faccia stare a contatto con i cadaveri e infatti presto troverà lavoro come custode dell'obitorio in ospedale. Qui lui aveva il compito di ricucire i cadaveri dopo le autopsie e pian piano sviluppa la voglia di mangiarli. Sì, gli facevano venire fame. Infatti un giorno prova prendendo un pezzettino dalla cavità addominale di un corpo e lo mangerà crudo. A quel punto proverà un'emozione incredibile e non riuscirà mai più a smettere. Infatti nel 94 poi arriverà a voler toccare l'apice del contatto con la morte e voi sapete bene che l'apice è l'omicidio. Infatti nel 94 incontra un perfetto sconosciuto a casa sua e senza nemmeno rivolgergli la parola gli spara un colpo dritto in faccia. Gli sparerà più volte in realtà, poiché la povera vittima non è morto subito e alla fine lo finirà spaccandogli un vaso sulla testa. Prima di andarsene però prende con sé una sveglia e una segreteria telefonica e anche qui ci chiarirà Nico come mai. Nel 94 ragazzi c'erano stati altri 6 omicidi a Parigi molto simili a quello compiuto da Nico. Infatti qualcuno ha pensato che potessero essere tutti attribuibili a Nico, però non hanno mai trovato le prove che lo collegassero agli altri omicidi, quindi per ora Nico rimane colpevole di un solo omicidio. Ora Nico ha scontato la sua pena, è un uomo libero, è un artista, è uno scrittore e un editore e ha scritto per gli aspiranti cannibali un ricettario speciale a base di carne umana che si chiama The Cannibal Cookbook ed è un libro che io ho letto e mi ha fatto ovviamente interessare alla figura di Nico. Ora ci collegheremo con lui. Ah, ma sei già qui! È un piacere!
It's my pleasure.
Benvenuto nella prima puntata di Intervista al Killer. Tu Nico sarai il primo killer che intervisterò in questo nuovo format. Non vedo l'ora perché la tua storia è incredibile.
Incredibile.
Ah, ma conosci l'italiano? Come mai?
A little. I studied Italian for 1 year in Portugal, so I'm rusty, but I can understand some few things.
Wow, sei pronto per la prima domanda?
Yeah.
Iniziamo! Nico, tu hai scritto molti libri, per lo più di genere macabro, e uno ce l'ho qui, mi ha colpito tantissimo il tuo ricettario per cannibali. Hai avuto problemi a pubblicarlo?
So I created my own publishing company. I was actually working for French, and I am still working for a French publishing company called Camion Noir, which means black truck. It's a company specialized in true crime and occult. and I was doing translations of English books into French language. So I did this for about 10 years, and I still do it. I still work with that company. But during those 10 years, I learned everything in the publishing trade. I learned how to translate. I learned how to actually create books with special programs to design books. I learned how to publish a book. So I learned everything from A to Z to actually become myself a publisher. And now I'm a full-time publisher. I have my own company called Serial Pleasures. And I try to release books frequently. So I do all kinds of different books, but it's mostly true crime. And sometimes it's books about my own story, because I am at the center of true crime, as you probably know. And the next book I'm working on, I'm actually very, very excited, because it's a book on the fans and lovers and friends of Richard Ramirez. So it will be a book with hundreds of photos and stories from the people who knew Richard Ramirez and wrote to him in prison. And it's an amazing book that I'm working on, and it will be released next month.
Nico, nel tuo libro ci sono davvero moltissime ricette, ognuna dedicata a un killer specifico. Hai mai provato una di queste ricette?
Well, actually, those recipes, they actually are based on real things that I've been told, because I used to correspond with several cannibal killers when I myself was in prison. I corresponded with Issei Sagawa, who was known as the Japanese cannibal. He killed a student in Paris, and he ate her, and he was released like 4 years after because he was insane. He was found insane by the French system, and he was sent back to Japan. So when I was myself in prison, I started to correspond with him, and we exchanged a lot of letters for 10 years. So there's a recipe more or less based on something that he told me in one of his letters. There's also a recipe based on a real recipe designed by a cannibal killer called Otis Toole. And there's each time I base the recipes on specific killers and what they said during custody or during when they were interrogated about what they actually did. For example, the Armin Maivis recipe, it's more or less based on what he said to the police when he was arrested.
Vorrei chiederti della tua prima esperienza cannibale. Com'è stata?
I was working in a morgue, okay? And it was my first time working there, and one of the things that I had to do was actually to assist the doctors during the autopsy. So at first, they showed me how to do it. They showed me how to stitch the bodies up after the openings and the actual autopsy. And back then, in hospital morgues, there was like 1 or 2 or 3 maximum autopsies a week. Okay, we would usually do them in the morning. And I had this fantasy for very, very, very long time, since I was a child, of actually trying this, the cannibalism. Okay. And I had read about the story of Sagawa when I was a kid, when I was about 10 years old. And I was fascinated by this. And later on, when I had the occasion, because it was the occasion to actually try those things, and I actually, I had no moral barrier, no moral limits to do them. Plus, I had been doing other illegal things for several years before. So in me, there was no moral stopping to do it. So I actually took little bits of tissue, small bits, like that's that big, from the abdominal cavity, because that's where I had the easiest access when I was doing this. And sometimes I would eat them raw inside the room, the autopsy room, or bring them to my home and cook them in different ways. So I did this for about 6 or 7 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Come ti ha fatto sentire mangiare una persona?
I felt like a rush, power, and extreme awareness of my surroundings, like doing coke, more or less. So I don't know if it was psychological, probably, but I was extremely high. And I felt like I had cut the umbilical cord that attached me to the rest of humanity, because it set me above, like on top of the food chain. See what I mean? Like a predator. So for me, it was a symbolic way of putting myself away from the rest of humankind. And this is what I wanted to do since I was a child. I never felt connected to other people. I always felt different. And this was my way of symbolically cutting the cord.
È una domanda un po' particolare, ma che vino consigli con la carne umana?
Red, okay, with fruit to it, very fruity, strong, because it's more or less in the form of taste as a horse. If you ever eaten a horse, because there's not much fat in the tissue itself, and the fibers are very dense. There is a big density to the fibers. So this is why I compare it to horse. Now the taste, honestly, I didn't focus on the taste at all when doing those things. For me, it was more about the spiritual experience and the rush. So most people, they ask me always the same question: how does it taste like? Pig, horse, cow. I say horse because I used to eat a lot of horse meat, steak tartare, when I was younger. That's why I compare it to that, but it's unique. It's a unique taste. So there's not real comparison when you think about it.
Tu sei stato un cannibale per molto tempo, per te era un impulso irrefrenabile. Ti capita ancora di aver voglia di carne umana?
No. Those things I did, it was a progression thing, because I started with going to graveyards. I started with stealing skulls and bones, like the bones behind me. I would steal those things from graveyard. So I was breaking the law all the time. There was not a single week in my life since I was age 16 where I was not breaking the law in some way, because for me the law didn't exist in my mental landscape. So no, I didn't. Sorry again. The question is?
Ti chiedevo se ti capitasse ancora di avere voglia di carne umana.
Yeah, I forgot the question.
Non ti preoccupare.
Oh, if I steal, yeah. No, nowadays, I found another way to master and to channel my my obsessions and my dark desires and my demons. And I have accepted my demons in my life, and they work with me. So it's the story of my life. I have found a way to actually master the demons, and through creativity. So when I was in prison, I started to paint very dark things, graveyards, corpses in the morgue, things like that. And I started to paint portraits of serial killers. I even sent some of the portraits to actual serial killers who were in prison. So I did that. And people liked my paintings. And I started to do art shows. And my art was shown in Japan, even in Italy, in a gallery called Mondo Bizarro. And in plenty of different countries around the world. And they started to be in books. So, yeah, I understood that there is a way to actually accept who you are without breaking the law, and just through creativity.
Quindi mi stai confermando che l'arte può essere un metodo molto valido per esprimere i tuoi impulsi, per sfogarli.
I do believe that when you have a very, very dark nature, either you express it through violence or you express it through creativity. It has to be out of you somehow. And most people I have met in prison, they have no other language than violence, because this is it is the first language that they were taught when they were children. Their parents were violent, so they grew up as violent people because this is the way that they communicate their emotions, by being violent. It wasn't my case. Me, the violence, it was not a mode of expression, but it was linked to very dark emotions, not self-destructive emotions, but the obsessions with death, and seeing people die. So the only way for me was to actually experience this, and this is what I became a criminal. So, but after I had this experience in my life, I understood through art that there was another way of communicating those dark things. And now I communicate them through books and paintings and all the objects that I create for my company, zeropleasures.com. So those are the ways that I express this very dark inner world inside me, and it's for the best, I guess. It's for the very best for the community, I guess.
So che stai scrivendo un nuovo libro, ho letto qualcosa in giro, si chiamerà Evangeli della putrefaction, giusto?
Yes.
Di cosa parlerà?
This is actually the book that I have written in French, Évangile de la putréfaction. It is my biography, and it is already out. It's been written 3 years ago, and I have translated it in English under the name The Gospel of Blood. So it's the story of my life. There's 666 pages, and it's my life from my childhood to my criminal activities, to prison, then after prison, and all the things that I did after prison, which are sometimes even crazier than the things that I did before prison. So it's a very intense book, and I was kind of proud of the result. And people seem to love this book, so it's good. It's good. Good feedback.
Ci sono stati altri 6 omicidi molto simili al tuo. Hai compiuto tu questi omicidi? Sei un serial killer, Nico?
I am different from that. I am someone who did extremely violent things, okay? But I do not think that I have the same motivations as normal serial offenders. I have my own motivations, and as I say in my biography, I did those terrible things, not the murders. I've never been convicted of the things that you mentioned, okay? But I was planning all the time on certain things. When I was in school, for example, I was planning on killing my classmates, okay? When I was at university, I wanted to kill the other university students. And when I was working in a morgue, I wanted to kill the other morgue co-workers. And those plans, they were very, very, very precise. I would write them down. I would take notes. I would wake up in the morning thinking about that, go to lunch thinking about that, go to bed thinking about that. So yeah, probably my mind was obsessed by this thing.
Ora mi devi spiegare questa cosa. Perché dalla scena del crimine ti sei portato via una sveglia e una segreteria telefonica?
There were trophies. Those things I kept as trophies, as some kind of souvenir. I did not specially need them, or it was not to sell them or anything. You have to understand, in this year, 1994, and at this time, at the end of the summer, I was in a very weird state of confusion. So I did a lot of illogical things. So even nowadays, like 30 years after, 25 years after, there are things that I did back then that I cannot really explain or justify. Some things that were stupid, some things that were illogical, but that was the state of my mind back then, and there was no logic to the things that I did. But the act of taking things, when I think about it, yes, it was like trophies.
Come ti sei sentito dopo aver ucciso? Cioè, quali sono state le tue sensazioni?
The same as when I did the things in the morgue. So rush, power, and at the same time, no emotion. So, but at the same time, I wanted more because it was not satisfying. Okay. So, and I was planning more, and I was not even thinking about what I had done, but I was thinking about the next thing that I would do. So I was already thinking about something else. So I don't know, it was weird. But yeah, not many emotions. Yeah.
Qual è secondo te la ricetta migliore tra quelle che hai descritto nel libro?
The best recipe. I'm not a huge fan of boiled meat. I prefer being cooked on a stove with open fire, and I like the barbecue recipes that are in the Cannibal Cookbook. So maybe cannibal barbecue. That would be the best recipe. Plus, I like the idea of being united with nature.
Qual è per te la carne migliore? Cioè, cambia in base al sesso, all'età, alla
I would
razza?
say that's an interesting question because there was a lot of. That's an interesting question because there was a lot of different accounts when there was um, discoveries around the world in the 19th century. So, you know, all those people like Vasco da Gama and all those, you know, people who traveled the world and first met cannibal tribes. Sometimes they themselves tried it. They tried human meat. And sometimes they tried human meat from different countries. So there was this navigator called Cook, and he said that he had tried meat from people who lived in the Pacific Islands. He had tried meat from black people, and he had tried meat from European people. And he said that the worst taste comes from European people. And the people from the ocean islands, they tasted sweet, really sweet. But the taste that he liked the less was European. So that might be an answer to one of the questions. If the taste depends on certain specifics. So I guess that's an interesting answer.
Grazie mille davvero Nico per essere stato così gentile e aver risposto a tutte le nostre domande. Volevo chiederti che progetti hai in questo momento? Parteciperai a degli eventi in giro per il mondo?
Well, thank you for having me in your show. That's really cool. Actually, I am preparing a show in Italy. That should be later this year, and it will be done normally in Venezia. And it will be a crime show with lots of letters and objects and things like that belonged or have been done by serial killers. So normally I will be there and I will do signatures and things like that. But there is also an interesting thing is that I will be they will be showing a fridge that I actually brought back from Armin Maives' abandoned house, which is in Germany. For those who don't know, Armin Maives is the man, the computer technician who contacted a man on the internet, and they agreed on him eating the other. So they made a pact, and they filmed it, and he actually ate him for a period of 7 months before being arrested by the police. And yes, there will be the actual fridge that I found in his abandoned home in Germany, and the fridge will be brought to Italy for the expos. It will be an expo. I will know more about the details of the location and etc. But normally, yes, it will be in Venezia.
Io sono fissata coi capelli. Quando eri un cannibale avevi i capelli lunghi. Ti mancano?
You have to ask this to my girlfriend. I don't know. She never knew me with long hair. But yeah, well, you know, it can always grow back. I mean, one day maybe I will have the hair back. I don't know. Right now, I like my absence of hair. But yes, people would believe that I was in a metal god band when I had the hair, so I don't know. Yeah.
E come va con l'empatia?
Yes. I learned to be human, more or less, and to have a better understanding of human interactions. But it took very, 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 very long. So, and I can only focus on very few amount of people, and the difficult part for me is to be surrounded by people who think that they are kind of like me because they like the same things, but at the same time I feel totally alien to them.
Quindi possiamo imparare ad essere empatici?
Yes. I also think that some people, very few people, but some people are born without. And it's like being born without an arm or legs, you know. it's a handicap. And if you are born without this, your life choices are very limited, and you can have an extremely high IQ. Still, the fact of not having empathy will be very hard for you to actually succeed in life. There are some psychopaths who are very effective businessmen and who have a great career, but there's always something missing. So it's yeah. I think as long as you understand that you are working with something that is missing, I think it is possible to succeed. But let's say that the situation for somebody who lacks empathy from the start is really difficult. It's difficult, and it's also a cocktail. It's also when you have lack of empathy and when you are introvert and when you are obsessed with the macabre, and you can have excesses of violence, then this is the cocktail that will lead you to prison.
Ora che salutiamo veramente, io non vedo l'ora di mandare in onda l'intervista.
Perfect. Thank you for the interview. It was fun.
Ma grazie a te, grazie mille per il tuo tempo.
Thank you. Arrivederci.
Quindi ragazzoni, abbiamo capito che noi europei non siamo persone molto buone, ma che le persone sono in realtà cavalli deliziosi. Ma a parte ciò, siamo di fronte a un killer che, come avete sentito, è pieno di ombre, pieno di pensieri oscuri, lo era ed effettivamente lo è ancora. Eppure io vedo un uomo perfettamente recuperato, non so che cosa ne pensate voi, fatemelo sapere, mi raccomando, nei commenti, ma secondo me Nico è un buon esempio di come i mostri non siano per forza destinati a rimanere dei mostri, ma possano anche trovare un futuro e un reinserimento nella società. E mi ha colpita moltissimo, devo dire, quando lui parla di come l'arte lo aiuti a sfogare, no, le proprie pulsioni, i propri pensieri oscuri. È stato veramente emozionante. Voi voglio sapere un po' che sensazioni vi ha dato questa intervista, che cosa ne pensate, fatemelo sapere, mi raccomando, nei commenti. Vi dico che arriveranno altre interviste con altri killer. Intervisteremo sia chi è ancora in prigione, sia chi è invece già una persona libera, ma anche chi è in prigione come killer e ancora sta lottando per dimostrare la propria innocenza. Intervista con il killer è un format a cui tengo moltissimo, lo sto amando e lo porterò avanti. Intanto vi dico che vi aspetto su Twitch ogni martedì e giovedì in live alle 21 e la domenica dalle 19 per la maratona crime. Grazie infinite per aver guardato questo video, vi ringrazio davvero tantissimo, vi mando tanto amore giallo e alla prossima intervista.